Deuteronomy 28 and 43, talking about this particular curse here. I spent some time in the PT area of South Carolina last week, and I'll be there for the next couple weeks on and off. There's a small town going out I-20 right outside of Florence, which is about an hour and a half away from the beach in traffic. So it's kind of close to the coast. But anyway, just kind of give you some geographical point of reference. The name of this little town is Timminsville. Now, it's 77% Hebrew. When I say Hebrew, I'm talking about so-called black people, okay? Grow up, all right? Grow up. The Hebrews, the people who you call Jews, who are imposters in the earth today, those aren't Hebrew people. Those aren't Israelites. And those aren't Jews. They're not Judah, okay? Those are Idumeans, those are Romans, and even their own scholars and their own encyclopedias say as much, okay? The town of Timminsville is very small, and almost 80% Hebrew, okay? Now, it's interesting because, I like, when I go to different places, I like to do a little bit of research on where I am. And it's interesting. You know, the top two producers in Timminsville are, in terms of small businesses, one of them is an Elamite gas station owner, and the other is a so-called Vietnamese, or not Vietnamese, a so-called Chinese Moab restaurant owner. On Main Street in Timminsville, South Carolina, Hebrews own nothing. Now, there's not much to it, all right? I think there's a little small, well, I don't think. There's a tiny barber shop and a tiny beauty salon owned by a couple of Hebrew people, all right? So-called black person. Other than that, the people who are making money in that town are Edom, Moab, and Elam, all right? And that is another indicator, if you will. That is another way to know who these prophecies are talking about, who these curses apply to in the earth today. Okay? Because I'm going to read that one particular curse, but I thought it was interesting. And I even asked that Elamite gas station, I'm not going to buy gas from that guy, because he's I talked to him and he had a wicked spirit on him. I asked him, I said, don't you think, this is what I asked the guy. I said, don't you think it's interesting that your people can come over here and open up gas stations right in a Hebrew area, and you're making money hand over fist and they don't have anything? And I said, and they've been over here for almost 500 years. Don't you think that's a little weird? And he said, well, you know what he said? His exact words, and I'll never forget when he said this. His exact words were, that's their problem. That's what that proud, filthy Elamite who sells liquor and cigarettes and lottery tickets to disenfranchised so-called black people, that was his response to me. Okay? The curses can only fit a so-called black person in the earth. And I understand, and I'm all too familiar with the truth that it's not based primarily on color, because there are people scattered in the four corners of the earth that can trace their line back to Israel who don't look like black people. Okay? I got that. At the end of the day, you got to test the spirit. This was a filthy Elamite. And you know what? There are two so-called black people in there, and they heard me talking to them. One of them was shaking his head. And he knew. He knew what time it was, so to speak. All right? Deuteronomy 28 and 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Okay? These strangers in Timminsville, South Carolina, and all over America and all over the earth, they're up above Jacob. They own that gas station. And he was bragging about how much money he made. Okay? He's making money hand over fist and laughing all the way to the bank. That Chinese restaurant Nothing but, I mean, yeah, you have other nationalities coming in there. I'm not saying it's predominantly Hebrew, but most of them are. They're coming in there to get that pork fried rice and all that pork, okay, and dogs and cats. All right, they're above Jacob. It's systematic. It's a system. The system is set up to where the other nations are above it, and that's Bible prophecy. Okay, that's Bible prophecy. You say, well, what about all the so-called African American basketball players and rappers? The so-called Jews prop some of those people up, okay, as tokens, and those people are wicked. The majority of those of rap artists, especially gangster rap, they're wicked as hell. They're leading their people into the lake of fire, okay? And they're puppets for Baphomet. They're puppets for their Edomite Jewish handlers who are laughing at them, okay? Those guys in the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball, they're making money hand over fist for their Jewish masters, okay? And that's the way it is, all right? Because let me tell you something. Once those guys are done, their bodies are broken down, especially football players, right? Their bodies are broken down, and they just go on into the sunset, all right? The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, thou shalt be the tail. All right. So that's it on that one. Now, let's go into probably one of the more famous curses, and a lot of mention is made of this one. And now, I've asked people to show me. I've asked people to show me a record online, in different forums and different chats. I've asked people who prop up Europeans as Jews. I've asked them to produce a document, to produce a record, a book, a record, evidence of them ever being carried away on cargo slave ships. Okay? In their history, where has their people ever been in mass carried away in cargo slave ships not to be redeemed, serving their enemies in a land they didn't know about? And you know what? I get crickets, because nobody can show me that. Because you know why? Because it didn't happen to another group of people.